Thanks for joining us today. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northwest Arkansas is celebrating 25 years this year. I'm your host, Jen Yonda. With me today are two special guests, Amy Stockton, former executive director, and Julie Joyner, longtime employee. Thank you both for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Big Brothers Big Sisters, especially here in Northwest Arkansas. So Amy, I'm going to start with you. Let's take it back to the early days. You were the second executive director.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Tell me what it was like back then.
Such a large, supportive regional board, a lot of can-do people with skills, which was great because I made 3.5 staff members when I joined January 5th, 1998. I was 12. And so a lot of support, a lot of energy. The groundwork had been done for me, which was fabulous. And I do remember coming in the first day. It was funny. I didn't have a desk. So I walked in with my box of stuff. And then that day a volunteer came with the desk. So it was just funny. Like, I've got a desk and my storage unit, and we got going. And I started on January the 5th, and just getting into it. It was my second nonprofit job, and looking at the upcoming calendar, where our largest fundraiser, which you may have heard of, Bowl for Kids' Sake, was 2 months later. And of course, the team had a good system, but I'm looking at the overall budget, and that was in 2 months we were to bring in like 70% of the budget for the year or something like that. It was good. It was a lot of energy. And then just looking at on a national scale, what we had seen is that everyone knew the public-private venture study, what Big Brothers Big Sisters did, the dosage and duration of mentoring and what it did. So we had a solid program. The leadership were really the core. The core was social work and sociology, and then we got to see the leadership on a national level change to giving us the ability to fundraise and market that program. So that's what we saw when I came on board, and it was a very high energy time.
And the support of national behind, I think, was a big help. It's still a help for us today, just having that support behind us and the resources and being able to connect with other affiliates. I think we have 240 affiliates now. Being able to connect with them and pick their brains and see what they're doing and share information. And
absolutely. Coming from the common standards that we all follow and build on. You come in with a common language of how to do Big Brothers Big Sisters, and how do we want to take our program where we want to go.
Exactly. So what were your goals when you first started? You had 3.5 staff members. We have 13 today. So we've grown a bit staff-wise, but what were your goals?
After I got my desk? It was, my goals were to grow the organization. That truly, everything was in its infancy as far as like individual giving and building out our team, and all of the foundation was there, but building strong, I guess, pillars in the first floor and the second floor. So I think it was growth.
And what was your vision for Big Brothers Big Sisters? Our goal this year was to serve nearly 400 families. So I'm guessing in the early days, you weren't in the triple digits yet. Were you serving 100 families? Were you serving?
So, my math may not be exactly correct. When I started, I think we were at either 36 or 42 matches. So yes, that's where we were. And we had a goal of a certain position, what we could do when we got to 100 matches, and that was add our first development director. So that was a huge carrot for us. And then when I left, huge growth with school-based, and so we were definitely in the triple digits with all of our growth. I think at that time we were close to 300 or 400.
And I think you guys had more school-based than we do now.
Yeah.
We have 6 now, and I think you guys were, and that's including Siloam Springs, because right now we're in Fayetteville, Washington, Leverett, and Owl Creek. But
yeah, that was really the growth that we had. That's when Big Brothers Big Sisters brought school-based on board, and that was the explosion. Yeah.
That takes me to another question I was going to ask later, but I think it leads into it now. But let's talk about trust. So one of the biggest issues that we still deal with every day is building trust in this community. We have 25 years behind us now. We've got a great history in this community, so people do have some trust with knowing that we've been around and know what we're doing, but still it's asking a lot of parents to say, hey, let's make a match with a mentor for you, and now trust that your child's going to be okay going off one-on-one. So how did you work to build that trust in the early days?
Two fantastic, authentic staff, and really adhering to the standards and practices of Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. I mean, that was just, we built on that. Every single decision we made was first reviewed by what is the program, how do we deliver the program safely, and always I'm thinking of listening to Julie and the conversations. The trust was built with a solid program, one-on-one interactions, but then the ongoing conversations that our staff had with the children and the parents and the volunteers.
I think, the ongoing match support, which Julie, you did that for years. That really helps to build the trust because you're checking in constantly. And you really get to know those families.
That's true.
So, where was the office located? I know it's moved a few times. We're in Fayetteville now.
Yeah, yes. Well, we were at the JTL shop.
Okay.
Next to the Jones Center. And we also had an office in Rogers at that time, sharing with Habitat for Humanity. So, yes, that's where we started. You know, I mean, Mrs. Bernice Jones did so much for the organization, so much for Northwest Arkansas, and I remember cutting the ribbon on the JTL shop. And that was a great time for us as a small nonprofit and me as a new executive director to be surrounded by all of the other nonprofits and just with their leadership and their resources. So that was a great nurturing time for us and for our families.
Yeah.
You know, they'd be able to work with other nonprofits.
That's right. I think that's something that we still work with a lot, is trying to collaborate with other nonprofits and offering services. We'll talk about in later episodes. Some of our new initiatives this year is a food bank for our families that we're working with another, a local church to provide food. And so collaborating still today. Now, Julie, you started working at Big Brothers Big Sisters back in 1999.
Yes.
Party like it's 1999. You left for a few years and you came back. So all told, you've spent nearly 15 years with Big Brothers Big Sisters Northwest Arkansas. So tell us about the changes you've seen in that time.
Well, I think, when I think back to those years and then compare them to now, it's just basic. Kids still need good mentors. None of that has changed. Kids needed them then, they need them now. I think some of the struggles we see now with our kids, anxiety is big right now amongst children, and there's a lot of children struggling with anxiety and a lot of other mental health issues also. So I think that's just another reason to have a great adult volunteer mentor in their life to help them through, just to be supportive and caring and just help them with those issues. What I also see different today than back when I first started, we have done an amazing job at reaching into the Hispanic community and really building trust in that community and accessing those families and matching up the Hispanic children that, it's just wonderful. We have a program through the U of A now called Dream Big. I think it's the third year for it. Is that
third
right?
year.
Third year. And that's with a school in Springdale, a middle school at J.O. Kelly. And it's a group of girls from the U of A that go there and mentor middle school girls. So love that program. I think that's wonderful. So just seeing some growth like that I think
and
is
that
really
goes back
good.
to the site-based and again building trust. One of the things when we wanted to reach out to the Hispanic community was building the trust, and Hispanic community traditionally will trust the school system. So if you partner with the schools, you automatically have more trust. And so doing it through the schools with J.O. Kelly and meeting at the school instead of taking their children off somewhere, we definitely got a lot more buy-in from people in the Hispanic community because of that.
We also have 2 full-time staff that are bilingual.
Three.
Okay,
Yeah, we have 3 bilingual staff. So
that helps a lot when
one in enrollment Kenya, one in match sport Ivy, and then our program director Rose.
Yes, that's right.
And so they also help. Part of my job is doing the community events, and so they sign me up for the tabling events like Vestido Rojo or Arkansas, and so they always have to accompany me because my 4 years of Spanish back in high school does not get me far. You know, I have enough to say this brochure is in Spanish, so I can't have a real in-depth conversation about our program, and so they're always good to show up with me and talk the program. Ivy is Puerto Rican, and she did Vestido Rojo with me this year, and she said, I spoke more Spanish today than I have in months. I'm going to dream in Spanish tonight. All right, so both of you, thinking back, are there any stories that just stick in your head, littles or matches that you've made?
Wow. I think what comes to my mind immediately is there have been a handful of now adults that I run into, connect with, and they start talking to me about when they were little, when they were matched. They still stay in touch with their bigs, and I've had a few of them just say to me how much it meant to them and how much it just grew them and helped them, and so that's just fun, you know, to hear those stories from them.
Those are the stories that make me tear up. Like I'm kind of a closed off person, I think a little crusty, but there's still that gooey inside, and so we have people call wanting to volunteer, and they start telling me about how they were little and what their big meant to their life and changed their life. And
wow, that's where we are.
Yeah,
we have our littles.
25 years, we have our littles volunteering now.
Yeah,
and that just, I'm going to tear up now. That gets me every time to know that we have made a difference.
It is. It's incredible. So I wish, you know, I think you're going to probably try to pull in maybe some of our former bigs and littles and talk with them. So I think that's where you'll hear the great stories. But
Amy, what about you?
I am thinking of just some of the events that we did. Of course, it was great, the group events, to see them together. I mean, I would hear about them and see their pictures, but to see them bowling together. And I remember we had a picnic with potato sack races, and so just to see that energy, that lovely energy of relationships, and when the parents would come, holiday parties are just fun. I just think the vulnerability of the volunteers and the parents and the children to give that to us, and to help us guide them. They're guiding us. We're giving a support system, and we're allowing to see their relationship grow. That's just that's an honesty, and I just appreciated that from all of the people that were involved.
Everyone does have to be so honest in this enrollment process. I mean, child safety is number one concern at the end of the day, and we get those volunteers in and have to ask hard questions. For me, when I do the orientations, and one of the things I go around is, you know, why do you want to volunteer? And sometimes that brings out these real stories that these volunteers have experienced that come from places of trauma in their lives, and to be open and share that with a group of 15 other people is intimidating. But then to get one-on-one with Julie, and Julie really dives deep into their lives, and the honesty that they give you is so, it's so authentic. I think that's what makes really good volunteers, is their authenticity.
Definitely, yeah. It's not an easy process to be a big. It's you know, we ask a lot of hard questions. We do a lot to make sure that our safety piece is in place. But that's just, to me, what makes them more special. Once they do get through the process and are approved, then you've got some really good people volunteering with us. So.
Well, and then the support that you give them. I mean, I can still hear your voice so many years later. I mean, you just would give the bigs a lot of support, because we're all on a journey, and you know, there would be times when the big wasn't able to connect with the little, and just the challenges, and you built that trust with them to, hey, can we build a bridge? You know, what do we need to do? Do you need a pause for a little bit while you get through semester, or you get through this sickness or whatever, and then to be able to come back with them and just keep that relationship going.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Julie's one of, I think, the the most genuinely nice people I've ever met. And you and I met. She was working for Bentonville Public Schools, and she would say, "Hey, this kid needs a mentor. Let's give them a mentor." And you just wouldn't give up.
No,
You
fought hard for
so hard to get those kids mentors, and doing whatever it would take to get our families through, and because you just truly believe in the power of mentoring and in these kids. And you know, our tagline is defending potential, and while that can be a tagline all day, it's so true, and that's what you did. You wanted to protect the potential of these children and see them grow into it.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it has been such I have gotten the blessings from my work, but just learning, you know, growing with these kids and seeing, you know, all the difficulties that can sometimes happen in life, but they're all resilient and they just keep at it, and families stay at it together, keep working hard as a family. And so it's been a wonderful journey to know all the families, the littles in our program, and then the bigs too. So I know over the years I had probably, several, I would say maybe 15 or more matches that lasted from the time they were matched until the little graduated from high school. So they were together 10 years or so. And then the big was at the little's high school graduation. And, you know, from there it continued as friends, you know. So I've known matches where the little was in the big's wedding as one of their attendants. I've heard of a couple stories where the big was in the little's wedding after they grew up and got older. I remember one family, they had a family portrait and the little was in their family portrait. So yeah, because he was part of the family. So just really sweet.
I love that. I love those stories. So starting small, 25 years from 3 employees and 36 matches. Today, 13 employees, 360 matches plus. I think we're a little over that right now. That's a lot of growth over the years, a lot of outreach, which we'll talk about in later podcasts, from the Dream Big programs, the outreach in the Hispanic community, to Bigs with Badges is another one that we're talking about, where we're partnering with police officers in the community to match kids. We've seen a lot of change. What do you guys hope to see in the next 25 years from Big Brothers Big Sisters?
Wow. You know, if you're going to dream, there's just so many schools that could use site-based programs. You talk to principals, they love the idea of it. They love, you know, the thought of having it in their school, but there just has to be the funding and there has to be the volunteers to support it. So, but just thinking, you know, it'd be wonderful to have that in a lot more schools. Yeah.
I would agree with that. Flexible options. I love what you're doing at J.O. Kelly, and I now have 2 teenagers. One who drove himself to the orthodontist yesterday. I was like, I was like, I'll be back at 2:45 to pick you up, and I thought, no, I won't. Okay. But when I see them, you know, when you talk about the flexibility of mentoring, I mean, when you see how much of the world can come to them now and all that they have to deal with or they choose to deal with, just to having adults and people's in their lives with the positive influences. So if I hear my child say one more time, well, I read it on Instagram. I'm like, really? It is not a fact. And so just my dream for Big Brothers Big Sisters would be to keep on keeping on with the fabulous staff and the solid program, and to look at those flexible opportunities to engage more adults and these fabulous children, and to continue to develop the assets that all the kids have. Just need some love.
They do. Ladies, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks for having us. So this will be our 2nd episode in January. We'll release 2 more in February, and we'll post on social media when we do that.
Great. Thank you.